You know, it's like you're right there. You can almost taste it, that feeling that AI tools like ChatGPT could really shake things up. But getting them to hit the mark consistently, it's a bit like, I don't know, trying to win the lottery with random numbers.
Well, today we're diving deep into prompt engineering.
Yeah, prompt engineering, it's all about learning to communicate effectively with these incredibly powerful AI systems.
So, like, we're cracking the code, learning their language, and for this deep dive, we're drawing on insights from filmmaker and AI enthusiast Jonathan Kyle Hobson.
Now, there's someone who really gets it. I mean, he uses these tools for everything from mapping out his films to, get this, organizing his design class notes. That's dedication, or maybe just a genius level hack for staying organized. But either way, he gets right to the heart of it, you know. Before you even think about hitting that enter key on a prompt, you've got to nail down your why and your what.
Absolutely. It's like, what are you actually trying to achieve here? And is AI even the right tool for the job?
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in the hype and think, oh, AI can do everything.
It's like that chef's surprise dish.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be a surprise, but is it a good one?
Exactly.
Hobson uses this great analogy of user personas. Like, you could ask an AI to whip one up for you, no problem. But if you haven't defined who your target audience even is.
It'd be like, okay, make me a meal, but you forget to mention you're allergic to it, like everything.
Exactly. You're setting yourself up for bad time. And that actually leads perfectly into his next point, the power of context. The more details you can feed the AI, whether it's keywords, definitions, even the style or tone you're aiming for.
I guess it makes sense, right? The more information it has to work with.
It's like the difference between walking into a tailor and saying, make me a suit, versus actually giving them your measurements, the fabric you like.
And it's fascinating how much those tiny tweaks in wording can impact the output, right? Like Hobson uses this example of asking for a concise summary versus a brief one. Seems like a minor difference, but
Right. Concise tells it to keep the essential meaning but just make it tighter. But brief might mean it just chops off anything it considers extra.
so you end up with bullet points instead of a story. Concise is like that perfect shot of espresso. Brief, maybe that's the decaf version. So we've got our why and our what. We're all about context. But how much is too much? Because I feel like I could just drown these things in information, right?
It's a good question, and it actually gets at a fundamental aspect of how these AI models process information.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike us humans, who can hold a lot of context in our minds, these models have what's called a token limit. It's kind of like their short-term memory has a limited capacity.
So you can overload them. I never thought about that.
You can, and this is where, again, Hobson really encourages us to think about this, not as a limitation, but as an opportunity to, well, to get creative with our problem solving. So rather than trying to cram everything into one big, massive prompt, treat it more as an ongoing dialogue.
Gotcha. So it's less about do this, do that, and more like, I don't know, a conversation with a colleague.
Exactly. Start by setting the scene, giving it those key pieces of information, and then you guide it through a series of prompts to build on and refine the output. So it's collaboration, not just dictation, which is interesting when you think about it.
Because then you both bring something to the table, right? It's like you're the architect with the big vision, AI is maybe your draftsman, and you're working towards that final blueprint together. I like that a lot.
I do too. And like any good architect, you wouldn't just take those initial sketches as the gospel truth, right? You'd review, you'd refine. So don't be afraid to embrace editing with the AI's output.
So it's okay to be like, thanks, but I need to move that wall over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hobson talks about techniques like accordion editing, you know, expanding or condensing certain sections, or apple picking,
Yeah.
where you're plucking out the very best bits and pieces.
It's like you're curating the AI's output, shaping it to fit your vision. What I'm hearing is it's a powerful tool, don't get me wrong, but it's still a tool. We're the ones in the driver's seat figuring out how to get the most out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And part of that is understanding that not all AI models are created equal. You know, ChatGPT might be your go-to for more general tasks, but something like Pi, that excels at those back and forth dialogues we were just talking about, the brainstorming. So it's about picking the right tool for the job.
Okay, I get that. Different tools for different tasks. You wouldn't use a hammer to, saw a piece of wood. But if they're all drawing on these massive data sets of information, wouldn't they all have access to the same stuff? Why the different personalities?
Now that is the million-dollar question, and it's where I think the human element in AI development really shines through. Think of it this way. Imagine raising identical twins, okay? Same DNA, right?
But completely different upbringings. One grows up in the city, loves art museums. The other's out in the country, loves to code.
Exactly. Same starting point, but different paths. It's the same with these AI models. The way they're trained, the specific data they're fed, even the way their algorithms are tweaked, all of that contributes to their own unique style, their own strengths, even their quirks, you could say. They're not just mindless robots churning out the same generic stuff.
Okay, so it's getting more nuanced and picking that up. It's not just AI, it's about understanding these subtle differences. So instead of searching for the one perfect AI, it's more about assembling your own little dream team of AI tools. Like that.
Exactly. It's about finding the ones that resonate with your workflow, your creative process. And just like with any good team, communication is key. And luckily, Hobson lays out some pretty practical tips for crafting those prompts that get results. It's like giving the AI exactly what it needs to succeed.
All right, spill the beans. Magic words, secret codes. What are we talking about here?
Think of it less like magic and more like, well, being a good teacher.
Okay, I can work with that.
Right. You wouldn't just give a student a vague assignment and expect an A+ essay, would you? No. You'd provide context, maybe some key terms, some examples even. It's about giving them the building blocks.
Right, set them up for success. So instead of just lobbing, summarize the American Revolution at the AI, you'd maybe give it some specific themes you wanted to focus on, like, oh, I don't know, the role of propaganda or how that impact global trade.
Exactly. And this ties back into something we talked about earlier. AI's tendency to, let's just say, get creative with the facts, right? By giving it those clear guidelines, even examples, you're grounding it in reality.
Okay, so I'm sold on that. Clear guidelines, good examples, it keeps everyone on the same page. But how do you walk that line between giving it enough information to be accurate without just, overwhelming it with details? Because I've been there, I've done that.
That's where a technique called priming comes in handy. Instead of one big giant prompt, you break it down into a series of smaller, related prompts, like you're having a back and forth conversation.
So it's almost like giving it a crash course in your specific topic or field before you hit it with the main event.
Exactly. Let's say you're writing a sci-fi story, right? And you want the AI to help you brainstorm some really unique alien species.
Yeah.
Well, you might start by feeding it prompts about the planet they're from, their environment, maybe their societal structure, even some of the philosophical ideas you're exploring in the story.
So you're setting the stage, giving it this rich backdrop to draw from when it comes to creating those aliens. It's like instead of words, you're giving it a mood board or maybe a playlist to get those creative juices flowing.
Exactly. And as it generates ideas, you can then use those editing techniques we talked about, that accordion editing, apple picking, to shape the output to your liking.
This actually reminds me of, back when I was writing my first screenplay, I had this scene in mind, right? But it just wasn't working. I couldn't figure out why. And a mentor of mine, he gave me this really simple piece of advice: show, don't tell. It completely changed how I approached the scene, how I approached writing in general. And it's funny how these tiny shifts in thinking can have such a huge impact.
It is amazing, and I think it really highlights something crucial about using AI effectively. It's not just about the technical know-how, but also this mindset of experimentation, of being willing to iterate, collaborate with the technology.
It's like learning a new art form or a musical instrument. You don't pick it up and suddenly you're composing symphonies. It takes practice, exploration, even messing up a bit to really start creating something special. And that, I think, is where things start to get really interesting. We've gone from treating AI as this mysterious black box to hopefully understanding that it's a tool.
A tool that, like any powerful tool, comes with a certain responsibility.
Yeah.
And Hobson, he's a big advocate for using AI ethically and thoughtfully, something I think a lot about too.
Yeah, because just because we can do something with AI doesn't always mean we should, right? But how do you actually put that into practice?
It starts with awareness, I think.
Yeah.
Being mindful of how our actions, even our interactions with these tools, might have consequences both for ourselves and for society as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's where fields like, UX design, user research, that all becomes even more important.
Okay, help me connect the dots here. So UX design, that's all about creating those smooth, user-friendly experiences, right? What does that have to do with AI ethics?
Think about it. As AI embeds itself more and more into our lives, the way we interact with it, the interfaces we use, the overall experience, that all becomes really critical. And UX designers, well, they're on the front lines of shaping how we communicate, how we collaborate with AI in a way that's intuitive, ethical, and hopefully, enjoyable.
So it's about making AI more human-centered. I like that a lot. Making it work for us, not the other way around.
Exactly. It's not just about, designing a slick screen or a cool-looking button. It's about considering the emotional, the psychological impact of AI interaction. building trust, addressing anxieties, even fostering a sense of partnership, rather than this cold transactional kind of dynamic.
Right, because at the end of the day, AI should empower us. It shouldn't make us feel like we're just cogs in a machine. It's about finding that balance where AI helps us unlock our own potential, helps us lead more fulfilling lives.
Precisely. And honestly, that's a future I'm really excited about. It's
Oh.
not about replacing humans. It's about augmenting what we can do,
Yeah.
sparking our creativity, helping us connect with our values on a deeper level.
Which reminds me, we were talking about how Hobson uses AI for everything under the sun, from film projects to spicing up his dinner routine. I mean, it really highlights the incredible range of applications for this technology, and we're just scratching the surface.
Absolutely. And as we get more comfortable with this language of prompting, we can push those boundaries even further. Hobson actually touches on a really fascinating idea toward the end of his talk. What if we could use AI to help us uncover and align with our own personal values and mission? Like really dig deep and figure out what makes us tick.
Whoa. Okay, now that's going way beyond asking it to write a catchy email subject line or something.
Huh.
So we're talking about using AI not just to get things done, but to figure out what we should be doing in the first place. That's a whole other level.
Exactly. It's like AI could become this tool for self-discovery,
Yeah.
helping us identify those things that truly matter to us, and then, well, then empowering us to go after them more effectively. Imagine feeding it prompts based on your goals, your passions, even your fears, the things that hold you back.
It'd be like having this digital mirror that reflects back not just who you are, but who you could be. Like you could feed it your work history, those creative projects you've always wanted to start, maybe even that stack of self-help books on your nightstand.
I love that. And it could pull out those common threads, those recurring themes that maybe you hadn't even noticed before.
The things that make you, you. And from there, you could start generating ideas, even strategies to align your everyday actions with your core values.
It's a really powerful concept when you think about it. And I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible.
It's like AI becomes this co-pilot on your own personal journey of self-discovery, helping you navigate all those twists and turns and reach your full potential. It's pretty mind-blowing when you really let it sink in, and it all comes back to understanding that why behind our use of AI. Are we just trying to optimize our lives, to squeeze out a bit more productivity?
Or are we using it to connect with something deeper, to live more meaningful, more impactful lives?
Those are some big questions, and they're not going away anytime soon. And I think everyone listening needs to grapple with them as AI becomes more and more woven into the fabric of our world.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's not algorithms or lines of code that are going to decide the future of AI. It's going to be the choices that we make, the questions we ask, and the values that we choose to prioritize.
Well said. I mean, this deep dive, it's been incredible. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of prompt engineering all the way to the philosophical implications of AI in our lives. It's a lot to process.
It is, and it's all connected. But if there's one key takeaway from our conversation, it's this. As AI keeps evolving, it's not enough to just have the technical skills. We've also got to cultivate that critical thinking, that self-awareness, that ethical compass to make sure we're using this technology responsibly.
Absolutely. It's about becoming not just users of AI, but collaborators, shaping its future together in a way that hopefully benefits all of us.
Exactly. And on that note, I think it's time to let our listeners ponder these profound questions for themselves. Let them sit with it a while.
Indeed. This has been one of those conversations that will stick with me for a while. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep. So we're not looking for the one AI to rule them all, more like assembling a team of specialists, each with their own strengths.
Exactly. Finding the AI that fits your style, your workflow. And like any good team, communication is key. That's where Hobson's practical tips for crafting prompts come in. It's about giving the AI what it needs to deliver.
Okay, lay it on me. Is there some sort of magic formula? A secret handshake for AI?
Think of it less like magic and more like, being a good teacher.
Okay, I can get behind that.
You wouldn't just hand a student a vague assignment, write an essay, and expect an A+, would you? No, you'd give them context, keywords, examples, give them the tools to build something great.
Right, set them up for success. So instead of just saying, hey, summarize the American Revolution, you might give it some themes to focus on, like, I don't know, maybe the role of propaganda.
There you go. And it all ties back to that thing we talked about earlier, AI's tendency to, let's just say, sometimes it likes to get creative with the facts.
It tries to fill in the blanks. I get it.
Exactly. Give it clear guidelines, maybe even some concrete examples, and you're essentially grounding it in reality.
Keeping it honest. Okay, I'm with you. Clear guidelines, good examples. But how do you walk that line between giving it enough information to be accurate without just, drowning it in details? Because I've totally been there.
Well, that's where this technique called priming can be super helpful. Instead of one massive prompt, you break it down into a series of smaller related prompts, almost like you're having a back and forth conversation.
So it's like giving it a crash course in your topic before hitting it with the big question.
Exactly. Let's say you're working on a sci-fi story. You want some help brainstorming unique alien species.
Fun.
You could start by giving it prompts about their planet, the environment, their societal structures, even some of the philosophical themes you're exploring in your story.
Okay, so you're world building, setting the stage so that when it comes time to design these
It's
aliens,
got all that rich context to draw from, like giving it a mood board instead of just a written description.
that's a great way to put it. And then as it's generating these ideas, you can use those editing techniques, the accordion, the apple picking, to
Yeah.
mold it, shape it.
Exactly. You're curating the output, finding those gems.
This reminds me of when I was working on my first screenplay. I had the scene, right? But it just wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why. A mentor of mine gave me this really simple piece of advice: show, don't tell.
I love that.
Completely changed my whole approach. And it's funny how these tiny shifts in thinking in how you frame a problem.
It's huge. And it really highlights something crucial about using AI effectively. It's not just about the technical skills, the how-to, but also about cultivating the right mindset, being willing to experiment, to iterate, to collaborate with the technology.
It's like learning a new art form or a musical instrument. You don't pick it up and start composing symphonies on day one, right? It takes practice, exploration, failing even, to really find your voice. And I think that's where things start to get really interesting because we've gone from treating AI as this mysterious black box to hopefully understanding that it's a tool.
A tool that, like any powerful tool, comes with its own set of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And Hobson, he's a big advocate for using AI thoughtfully, ethically. It's something that's really important to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, just because we can do something with AI doesn't necessarily mean we should, right? But that can feel kind of vague, like
Yeah.
how do you actually put that into practice?
Well, it starts with awareness, I think. Being mindful of the potential consequences of our actions, even in our interactions with these tools, for ourselves, but also for society at large.
Yeah.
And that's where fields like UX design, user research, that all becomes even more critical.
Okay, so connect the dots for me. UX design, that's all about making those smooth, user-friendly experiences, right? How does that play into this whole ethical AI conversation?
Think about it this way. As AI becomes more and more integrated into our daily lives, the way we interact with it, the interfaces we use, that whole experience, it all becomes critical. And UX designers, they're the ones shaping that experience, making sure it's intuitive, ethical, hopefully even enjoyable.
So it's about making AI more human-centered.
Exactly. It's not just about, designing a sleek screen or a fancy button. It's about really considering the emotional, the psychological impact of our interactions with AI.
Building that trust.
Yes. And addressing the anxieties.
Yeah.
Right. Fostering more of a sense of partnership rather than this cold, transactional dynamic.
Because ultimately, AI should empower us, right? Not the other way around. It's
Yeah.
about finding that sweet spot where AI helps us unlock our potential, live more fulfilling lives.
Exactly. And that's the kind of future I think is worth getting excited about. It's not about AI replacing humans. It's about augmenting what we can do, sparking our creativity, helping us connect with our values on a deeper level.
Speaking of which, we were talking about how Hobson uses AI for everything under the sun, film projects, spicing up his dinner routine. It really highlights the incredible range of applications this technology has, and we're really just scratching the surface.
We are. And as we become more fluent in this language of prompting, we can push those boundaries even further. Hobson actually brings up a fascinating question towards the end of his talk. What if we could use AI to help us uncover and align with our own personal values and missions, to really figure out what makes us tick?
Whoa. Okay, now we're going way beyond writing a catchy email subject line. This is about using AI not just to get things done, but to figure out what we should be doing in the first place. That's next level stuff.
Right. It's like AI could be this incredible tool for self-discovery,
Yeah.
helping us identify the things that truly matter to us, and then empowering us to actually go after them in a more effective way. Imagine feeding it prompts based on your goals, your passions, even your fears, the things that might be holding you back.
Like having this digital mirror reflecting back not just who you are, but who you could be. You could feed it your work history, those creative projects you've always wanted to tackle, maybe even that stack of self-help books gathering dust on your nightstand.
I love that. And it could pull out those common threads, those recurring themes that you might not have even consciously noticed before.
The things that make you, you. And then from there, start generating ideas, strategies even, to better align your everyday actions with your core values.
It's a powerful concept when you think about it.
Yeah.
And I think we're only just starting to see what's possible.
It's like AI becomes this co-pilot on your own personal journey of self-discovery, helping you navigate all those twists and turns and reach your full potential. And it all comes back to understanding that why behind our use of AI. Are we just trying to, optimize our lives, squeeze out a bit more productivity?
Or are we using it to connect with something deeper, to live more meaningful and impactful lives?
Those are some big questions, and they're not going away anytime soon. I think everyone listening really needs to grapple with those as AI becomes more and more woven into the fabric of our world.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, it's not algorithms or lines of code that are going to determine the future of AI. It's going to be the choices that we make, the questions that we ask, and the values that we choose to prioritize.
Well said. This deep dive, it's been incredible. We've gone from the nuts and bolts of prompt engineering all the way to the philosophical implications of AI in our lives. It's a lot to process.
It is a lot, and it's all connected. But if there's one key takeaway from our conversation today, it's this. As AI continues to evolve, it's not enough to just have the technical skills.
Right, you've got to have a whole package.
We've also got to cultivate that critical thinking, that self-awareness, that ethical compass to make sure we're using this technology responsibly and purposefully.
We need to be active participants in shaping how this technology impacts our world.
Exactly. And on that note, I think it's time to let our listeners ponder these profound questions for themselves. Let them marinate for a bit.
Indeed. This has been one of those conversations that will stay with me for a while. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and, as always, keep diving deep. It's like we're talking about AI helping us unlock our potential on a whole new level. And it reminds me, we were talking earlier about how Hobson uses these AI tools for, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah, from those big picture film projects to something as everyday as like planning dinner.
Exactly. It really shows you the range of what's possible, even beyond those obvious use cases we always hear about.
Absolutely. And as we all become more fluent in this language of AI, who knows what we'll be able to achieve. Toward the end of his talk, Hobson, he poses this really intriguing question. He asks, what if we could use AI to help us uncover and align with our own personal values, our mission in life?
Okay, now that's getting deep. I mean, that's way more than just write me a funny poem or whatever. That's like using AI to figure out who we are, what we should be doing with our lives.
Exactly. It's like AI could be this tool for self-discovery, right?
Yeah.
It could help us pinpoint those things that truly matter to us and then actually help us pursue them, but more effectively. I mean, imagine feeding it prompts based on, I don't know, your goals, your passions.
Your fears even, right? The things that hold you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be incredible. It would be like looking into this digital mirror, but instead of just seeing who you are now, you're seeing, I don't know, like a better version of yourself, a more actualized version of you.
And imagine feeding it your work history, those creative projects you've always dreamed of tackling, maybe even like the books you read,
Yeah.
what you consume, what you surround yourself with.
It'd be able to spot those patterns, right? Those recurring themes that maybe we're blind to.
Exactly. The things that make you, you. And then from there, you can start brainstorming, generating ideas, strategies, but aligned with those core values, those core truths that the AI helped you uncover.
That's powerful stuff. It's like instead of AI just being another tool in our toolbox, it's like this co-pilot, on our own personal journey of growth. It's pretty mind-blowing when you really think about the possibilities. And it all comes back to that why, that intention behind why we're even using AI in the first place.
Yeah. Are we just trying to optimize things? Squeeze out a bit more productivity?
Or are we using it to connect with something bigger, something deeper?
Exactly. To live more fulfilling, more impactful lives.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there, but that's the beauty of it, right? It's not just about the ones and zeros. It's about what we choose to do with this technology, how we choose to integrate it into our lives.
It really is. And ultimately, the future of AI, it isn't going to be dictated by, lines of code or algorithms. It's going to be shaped by the choices that we make, the questions that we ask, and most importantly, the values that we choose to prioritize.
So well said. This whole conversation, this deep dive, it's been incredible. I mean, we've gone from the nitty-gritty of how to write a good prompt all the way to like the meaning of life, practically.
It's all connected though, right? But if there's one thing I hope people take away from this, it's that as AI keeps evolving, it's not enough to just have those technical skills, those, how-to tips.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've also got to develop that critical thinking, that self-awareness, that ethical framework to make sure that we're using it responsibly, purposefully.
Because it's not just about using AI, it's about shaping it, guiding it.
Exactly. It's about collaborating with it and with each other to make sure it's a force for good in the world. And on that note, I think it's time we let our listeners sit with some of these big questions for themselves.
I think that's a good idea. Let those ideas simmer for a bit. This has been one of those conversations that I know will be with me for a long time. But until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and, as always, keep diving deep.